The Ultimate Character Controller is seamlessly integrated with the Ultimate Inventory System, allowing you to seamlessly use the inventory system database with your character. In this video, we're going to go through the process of setting up an item to be used within the inventory system. So as you can see in this scene, I have a pretty basic scene set up where it's just a character, and this character has a first and a third person perspective. The perspective doesn't really matter at all from the inventory's view. It is just used when the items are spawned and you have to specify the locations and on different components. So from the inventory perspective, nothing changes, but I'm showing both perspectives just so you can see it. So the first thing that we want to do is let's take a look at the actual integration set of files and folders. And you can see that I already have the integration imported, and there are these 4 high-level folders. There's the demo folder, and I highly recommend that you do first go through this just so you can get a feel for the integration. The demo folder, it contains its own database, and I do not recommend using this database for your own scene just because this database is set up to be used with the demo set of assets. For example, it's pointing to these demo prefabs, and then the demo prefabs have some item definitions that point back to the database. So it is possible to update the database for your own set of prefabs and your own scene, but it's a lot easier if you do the method that I'm about to describe. Within this folder, we also have a set of editor scripts and runtime scripts. And then the thing that we're going to be focusing on is this empty database. So if we open up this empty database within the inventory manager, we can see that this database is now selected. Let's go ahead and duplicate it as one of the first things that we do. And this will ensure that we're always adding the objects to the correct database. Right now it's going through all the inventory objects and duplicating them. So you can see that we had just successfully duplicated it. Now that it's been duplicated, let's go ahead and let's go actually back to the setup manager, and let's make sure we add the components to the scene. So this will add the inventory system manager to the scene, which will point to your new database. So that is all set up. And let's now focus on the character. And the first thing that we want to do on the character is we notice that if we're scrolling through this list, we have item set manager and the inventory component. And these components are brought in from let me go back to the character manager. And then as soon as this opens up, I'll show you where it's brought in from. So let me drag in existing character. And you can see that this items toggle is selected, and this is good. We want this selected, so if you have a new character or an existing character, make sure you select the items toggle, and that is what brings in these 2 components. These 2 components aren't actually used by the integration. It's just that the integration will look for these 2 components in order to know which objects to add. So you'll want to make sure you have these 2 objects. It's under this toggle or under the new character toggle items right here. So now that we've done that check, let's go ahead and go to the integrations menu option. And you can see because I have the Ultimate Inventory System integration installed, it's a little box here in the integrations tab. I'm under integration inspectors, and this field right here is looking for 2 different types of objects. It's looking for either a character or an item pickup. Those are the 2 different types of objects that need to be updated to work with the Ultimate Inventory System. So we have a character, so let's go ahead and drag that character in and select Setup Object. You can see that the inventory and item set manager have disappeared, and instead we have a new set of components on the bottom. And the new set of components is this inventory script from the Ultimate Inventory System. We have the Ultimate Inventory System bridge, and this bridge is what links the Ultimate Character Controller to the Ultimate Inventory System. Then we have the Inventory System Item Set Manager, which is basically the equivalent of the Item Set Manager from the Ultimate Character Controller, except it uses a inventory system database instead of the item collections. Item collections and item types are no longer used at all, so you can get those out of your head. We don't ever need to reference those type of objects again. We're now using the inventory system equivalent set of objects. This inventory interactor component is then also used by the inventory system. So you can see we already have the new database selected, so that looks good. Let's go ahead and open up that database just so that we can kind of see what it's doing and see what it looks like. So this database is pretty simple in that it just has 5 different categories, and then it doesn't have any item definitions created. You're going to create the item definitions for your own scene, and we're going to create a couple here for this video. But first, let's go ahead and take a look at the categories. And the first category we have is all, which is kind of the root category. Everything is derived from it, so it's just kind of an organizational category. We then have consumable, and this category is used for the ultimate character controller consumable items, such as a rocket or a bullet or anything of that nature. The equipable category is used for the items that can be equipped, such as the rocket launcher or a sword or the flashlight. It's the ultimate character controller items, and the equipable category isn't actually used. It's used, but it's not directly, no items are directly added to it. Instead, the items are added to the multi-item or single item categories, and the multi-item category is used for items that have more than one instance attached to the character. Examples of this are dual-wielded pistols or the grenade, which can appear in the left or the right hand. And then the single item category is the reverse of that, and that is just a single item can appear, such as the assault rifle or the sword. So let's go ahead to the item definitions, and let's go ahead and create a new item definition. This is where we will create like my assault rifle, and so this is kind of similar to the different item types. And the assault rifle will be a single item, so we will change that, and then we will add the my assault rifle bullet. So we will add that, and we will change the category to be consumable. So now we have that set up. And now we have the item definition created, so let's go ahead and create the actual item. I do want to say, I should have mentioned this earlier, but if you haven't gone through the inventory system documentation or videos, I recommend that you do so first, just because I'm not really explaining what a category is or what a definition is. I'm assuming you already know that. So now let's go back and create the item. So we are now, this step should be very familiar to you. This is going to be the my assault rifle item, and I'll just get rid of the spaces. The item definition will be the item definition that we just created, so that is my assault rifle. The character, for the inventory system, we actually don't need to specify a character because all the items will be spawned at runtime, and so you'll notice that under the items game object here, we won't ever have any items underneath it at edit time, and that's because they're all spawned at runtime. So the slot ID is the right hand, which maps to index 0. The animator ID is 1. If you haven't gone through the item creation videos yet, I highly recommend that you do so, because I'm not really spending any time at all at what these parameters mean. These parameters are all the same between the inventory system and the ultimate character controller, since this screen is just completely independent of the inventory system. This first person base object, since we're spawning it dynamically and we already have a set of arms, we actually don't need to set the base object, or we don't want to set the base object, but because the base object needs a item component, or it needs to know which item slot to be specified. Actually, let me go to the third person object. Since third person is a humanoid, I already know which hand the character is using, so I can just reference the right hand in this case, and you'll see underneath the right hand there's this items game object, which has an item slot ID of 0. Well, if we go to the right hand here, we don't have that items game object, so we need to create it, and so that's why I'm specifying these arms. I'm going to remove those arms then shortly after it's created. But let's go to the visible item now, and I'm just going to drag my assault rifle model in. Let's see, I got it as a child of the first person object, so I want to make sure it's at the root level. So now it's there, and so let's go ahead and drag that in. You'll notice that we're getting the error saying that there is no item slot, and that's because we don't have one yet. So let's go ahead and add the item slot. So now we have that item slot similar to the humanoid third person model. And now that we've done that, we can just go ahead and clear this out. So this will just ensure that it's spawned in the correct location. So the animator controller references the animator controller for the assault rifle, so we'll just assign that, and we need to do something similar for third person. The consumable item definition is the bullets, so we will just reference that same object, and now we can go ahead and hit build. And we are going to save this out as a prefab. So we can see that the prefab is now created. So the prefab is created, however, the inventory system doesn't know about this prefab yet. So we need to make sure that we specify that, and we can do that by going to my assault rifle item definition and go into this prefab attribute, and we will specify the override value to the prefab. So now the inventory system knows which prefab should spawn based on the item definition. We should actually be able to see something shortly, so let me get these windows out of the way, and we will go back to the character. And if we go to the loadout item collection, we notice that there aren't any items here, and let's go ahead and add some, just because this is similar to the default loadout from the ultimate character controller inventory, and this is what will spawn when the character respawns. So let's go ahead and just specify these values. So we have these two set. So now when I hit play, I would expect the character to spawn with an assault rifle in both first and third person. So he spawned with an assault rifle in third person, and he did in first person as well. So that's looking good. The position is completely wrong for the assault rifle, but that is to be expected since we haven't set that up at all. So let's go ahead and quickly set that up. This is also specified how to do this in the item creation videos and then also the runtime item pickup videos. So I'm basically I spawn the object and then I reposition it and then I save those values. I'm going to do that here, and I'm going to speed up the video because I'm just copying values from the demo scene in this case. All right, and we're back. So I just specified the location for both third person and first person, and if you're interested in doing the same, you can do so by just taking a look at the assault rifle prefab within the Ultimate Inventory System Integration Demo folder, just right here. I just basically took the same values as that object. So that was no big deal. Now when we hit play, we should hopefully see the assault rifle in a similar location, or a good location, for both first and third person. Third person looks good, and so does first person. The first person arm is invisible, but that's just because the render bounds are wrong. So we could edit these bounds so that it appears correctly, but in this case it's not related to the integration at all, so I'm just going to leave it as is, but that's how you specify that. I mentioned that in the first person item creation video on more detail on why that's happening. So the inventory, or that has been spawned, but wait, if I go back and I hit play, you'll notice that I don't have a UI, so I can't even see how many bullets I have, for example. So let's go ahead and add that, but first I want to go to my assault rifle, and I'm going to specify an UI icon so that it will know what to show. So I will now specify the assault rifle icon, and we'll go back to our character manager, and we'll go under setup and we will add the UI. So now that the UI is added, we should see that the character has both an assault rifle and some bullets according to the UI. So yeah, that looks good, and I can fire the bullets. So we have that integration working. That's working well. In this case, the assault rifle is spawning at loadout. Well, let's say that we don't want to have the assault rifle spawn at loadout. So I'm going to just remove this completely. And what we're going to do instead is we're going to require a pickup in order for the assault rifle to spawn. And we can do that by opening the character manager again, and we can go to the object manager, and we will call this my assault rifle pickup. And the object type is item pickup. The game object is the visible game object. So this should be the assault rifle model. And let me just make sure I got that right. Yeah, that looks good. So I'm going to drag that in. When I hit build, it's going to ask us to create a prefab. So I'm just going to create that prefab. And then I will drag that in. And now this is set up to use the Ultimate Character Controller inventory. This item pickup component is just using the regular inventory system, or is using the regular Ultimate Character Controller inventory. So we want to make sure we change that, and we can do so by dragging it in under the object setup, under the Ultimate Inventory system. And when we drag that in and we hit setup object, we can see the object has been set up, and it adds the Ultimate Character Controller inventory, or Ultimate Inventory System inventory component, and then also changed it to inventory item pickup. So all that looks good. Now we need to specify what we want to pick up. So this is very similar to that loadout where we just specify the assault rifle. And let me specify both the assault rifle bullet and then also the actual assault rifle. And let's move him out of the way so you can see it actually being picked up. So now when I hit play, he should not spawn with the assault rifle, which is good. First person looks good, but then when I pick it up, he picks up the assault rifle just like as if he had spawned with it. So I think that's a pretty successful integration. It worked well, and we got everything working, and there weren't any errors or warnings, so that's even better. Let me go ahead and just show you one more thing related to this. If we click on Nolan, we can see that under the Inventory Item Set Manager, oh, there we go. Okay, so it took me a little bit to find, but it is right here. And we can see that there's these equipable item set. And you'll remember from the demo scene that we have equipable and then left-hand grenades and right-hand grenades. And these just specify the different item set categories. And this equipable category corresponds to the equipable item category here. And this is exposed through this exposed item set attribute. So you'll notice that we have multi-item, and in this case it's set to false. Well, if we were to set it to true, well, and then with the inspector refreshes, we'll notice that the multi-item item set category is also appearing, but we don't want that to, so we're going to deselect it, and then that will also update that. With multi-item, instead of having a single prefab field like we did with the assault rifle, we have an array of prefabs, and this array specifies corresponds to the number of slots that you have. So for example, the right hand is at slot index 0, and then the left hand is at slot index 1. I would specify 2 here, and then if I wanted to spawn something in the right hand, I would spawn it at element 0, and then the left hand would be spawned at element 1. This exclusive equip is used by the grenades, so that grenade is set to true. And actually, let me just verify that before I say anything too wrong, but I'm pretty certain that's the case. Yeah, so exclusive equip, if this is set to true, that means that only one item instance can be shown at a time. So for example, dual wielding would be set to false because you can have both a left and a right pistol shown at the same time. Both those pistols can be equipped, whereas the grenade you only want to ever show just in the left hand or the right hand, depending on the other items that are equipped. So that's what that attribute is used for. And that is pretty much it with the integration. It's pretty intuitive once you get into it, and once you have the understanding of how the ultimate inventory system works. You'll definitely want to understand both how the character controller works and how the inventory system works before really digging too much into it. But yeah, it's a pretty flexible integration. The last thing that I want to mention is that this structure right here, it is an ultimate character controller structure, but you can extend it as you please. There's nothing too special about this structure, except just make sure you have these same categories. But you can, if you notice in the demo scene, that we have a lot more categories than just these 5. And then if you have an item definition that doesn't relate to the character controller at all, you can place that in whatever category you want. So hopefully this gives you a good overview of how the integration works between the ultimate character controller and the ultimate inventory system.